The next story is more of a life lesson than an actual story, but it explains a principle that I've always believed, and I think it's actually probably one of the top 3 most important principles you can learn in life for people who want to find happiness. And that is the importance of being thankful for what you've got. The old primary song of Count Your Blessings. I think the people who are truly the happiest are people who learn to be thankful and appreciate what they have. And as a beginning school teacher, I remember I used to always, the first month of school, every time I had students assigned for various tasks, and one of the tasks where there was 2 students assigned to hand out papers, like if we're doing math or something. But I would require that as they go around the room handing out the math papers to each person, they had to stand at that person's desk until the person they gave the paper to said thank you, and then they'd move on to the next desk. And I was trying to ingrain in them the idea of just developing the habit. I don't know if they were learning to be thankful, but at least they were developing a habit of saying thank you. And then I figured after the first month, if they hadn't learned it by then, they probably wouldn't. And so after that, I wouldn't require it. But it also came into play once I became a principal, that every day I would call up to the office on the intercom all the students that had a birthday that day, and I would give them a pencil that said happy birthday on it, and I would give them a helium balloon that said happy birthday that they could tape onto their desk so all the kids in their class would know it was their birthday that day. And I'd let them pick a candy bar out of my candy bar drawer, that I always had a drawer full of candy bars. And I was noticing one day that how very few of them actually remembered to say thank you. And it was actually the student council that helped me do this, that they would fill the helium balloons and hand out the candy bars and pencils and stuff. And so I started telling my student council I want them to keep track of how many people say thank you when you come up and give them the balloon and the candy bar and the pencil. And so every day they would invite, there were usually 3 to 5 kids that had a birthday that day or something, and they would hand it out, and then they kept a little tally mark, and they would mark which kids said thank you and which kids didn't. And I remember at the end of the year looking through those tally marks, and out of like 900 kids, almost exactly 90 of them said thank you. And I always found that, and I did that for several years. After that I thought, oh, let's just see if it keeps working. And it always held truth. It was almost exactly 10%. And I always thought back to the parable that Jesus told about the lepers. And out of the 10 lepers that he told to go wash themselves in the river, and that they would be cured, and only out of the 10, only 1 person came back and said thank you, and told Jesus how much they appreciated it. And it occurred to me that that parable, although we might just think it was randomly picked 1 out of 10, I thought, maybe that's really what's true, that only 10% of people go through life learning to appreciate what they have. And it ingrained within me a deep desire to always stop and remember and be thankful for what I have. And so that's one bit of advice I would give to my kids and grandkids and anybody else, that if you want to find true happiness in life, learn to be thankful for what you have.